Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar with Helene Cho on cultivating life-work balance for coaches. We are absolutely excited to have you here and excited that Helene is doing this presentation for us. Just a couple of quick things. Because of the number of people on the call, we will be keeping you in the mute-only mode, which means that when you want to ask a question, please type it into your question panel. We will monitor those throughout the call. That way we make sure Helene has a chance to respond to what you want to know. And I know she has planned time at the end to take a few more questions there as well. So feel free to type your questions in as we go. A little bit of background on Helene. Her professional background consists of over 25 years of coaching, training, and organization development experience. She spent 11 years working for a Fortune 500 financial corporation. In the last 20 years, she served as Vice President of Drake Beam Morin, Inc., Seattle office, an international coaching and management consulting company, before starting her own firm, Synergy Consulting and Training, and she started that in 1993. Helene's areas of specialty include coaching, training, retreat facilitation, change management, and leadership skills. She has worked with over 100 different teams to assist them in building and maintaining effective and successful teams. Helene specializes in working with individuals as well as facilitating group workshops and retreats. Over 1,000 clients in diverse industries and positions. A certified professional coach, and I'm very proud to say that she did her certification with the Center for Coaching Certification. She is also an author. Her book, Hamster on the Wheel, Cultivating Life-Work Balance, was published in 2010. So without further ado, I am going to go ahead and turn control of today's conversation over to Helene so that you will have a chance to see her PowerPoint presentation and hear from her and tap her expertise. So welcome, Helene, and thank you, and it's all yours.
Okay, so is my PowerPoint slide coming through okay?
Yes, it is. We can see it now. Thank you.
Great, great. Well, good morning or good afternoon to you, wherever you are. I am just so happy to be with you here this morning to discuss a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm very passionate about it, which is cultivating work-life balance. Let's see, getting adjusted here. Here we go. The learning objectives for the next hour will be to individually define what life-work balance means for us, because it can be different for everyone, to learn some steps. 7 is a specific number that we're going to go through this morning, and then hopefully implement at least one of these steps in your life. So the first question is, how would you define work-life balance? How important is it to you currently? And we're going to have fun and take a little poll. Oh, for some reason, I'm not showing the poll thing.
I will launch it for you right now, Helene. So here you go. If everyone on the call would please select one of these choices, and then Helene, I'll keep you posted on how many people have picked an answer. So just click on your screen one of the answers that is most appropriate for you. So Helene, we've got a few people who have been responding, getting some of those answers in. Want to give them just a few more minutes. We've got about half have voted at this point in time, so we're just waiting on the others to click on their choice. And I'll share with you, we're going to get a really strong, we've got one of them coming out really far ahead of everyone else. So we're over 90% voted, so I'm going to wait just a few seconds. Any last-minute votes anyone wants to get in there? And then I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And what I want to do is share the results with you. So these are the answers that came up in this poll. Give you a chance to look at that, and then when you're ready, tell me, and I'll close it out.
Okay. I think I'm ready.
Okay. So we're back on your PowerPoint.
Okay. And I'm not showing the poll results. Do you see it on your screen?
Yeah. Oh, I closed it out. So we had 30% said time with loved ones, 70% self-care, sense of wellness, 40% said leisure, 40% creativity, and 40% number of working hours.
Great. So 70% was self-care, is that right?
Yeah, the greatest number was self-care.
Right. And I would say that's very congruent to when I do workshops on this topic in classroom, that is the one thing that seems to fade away, shall I say, when push comes to shove and we run out of time. The self-care seems to go to the very bottom. And we need to change that if we can, because in order to be very effective and very productive, we really need to do a lot of self-care. So we're going to discuss how to do that in a realistic manner. So the next slide shows a hamster on the wheel running in circles. And I don't know about you, but I often feel this way, that I'm sure busy and I'm feeling some stress. And I feel like I'm running fast and doing a lot, but am I really accomplishing something important? I'm not so sure. So sometimes it does feel like life is just running around in circles, and there are ways I think we can kind of get off that circle and, you know, be still and be relaxed and just take some time out to enjoy life. And of course, the benefits of life-work balance, as I'm sure everybody on this call already knows, is health, relationships, effectiveness, and enjoyment of life. And in organizations, life-work balance is not necessarily the most popular training topic. And I think we're kind of missing the boat on that one, because, you know, productivity classes are really popular. But as I mentioned before, life-work balance is just so tied into our effectiveness and our productivity. I really find that in my own life. So let's look at the 7 steps to cultivating work-life balance. And it's interesting that I subconsciously selected the yin and yang symbol because, you know, in our culture, which is great, by the way. I was born in South Korea, but I've been here for most of my life. And I love this culture for so many things. But I think it's also wise to recognize maybe some of the downsides of it, and therefore make some modifications for us individually for what works best. So the yin and yang, we are a very yang-oriented culture, which means we are doers. We should really call ourselves human doers, not human beings at times. So the first thing in terms of a step is learning how to say no tactfully. Now, some of you may be really good at this, and this is not an issue for you at all. Most of my clients, I find that saying no to really anything can be quite challenging, especially with certain people. Of course, it's situational. But I have had clients, and I can certainly speak to my own experience, where as soon as we're asked to do something, we say yes before we even think about it. We're so trained in some ways. So learning how to say no tactfully was really something that I had to learn. It's a lifelong growing experience. And so some of the simple ways I do this is, if someone asks me to sit on their board, I will say something like, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored, and I need 48 hours to think it over, and I'll get back to you. So instead of just saying the automatic yes like I used to, I now buy myself some time, no matter what it is, really, unless it's something simple like, hey, Helene, can you move your car? Anything else that's going to take a significant chunk of time, I really buy myself some time. And so once I have that time, I really have the space to think about, is this something that I even have the energy and time for in my life? And maybe even more importantly, is this something that's going to bring me more life energy? It's something that is going to give me joy, enough to balance out the number of hours and the number of just the amount of energy that I'm going to put into it. So, the balance part is almost like a, cultivating life-work balance part is almost like on a daily basis. So learning to say no tactfully. And I just want to address one other issue that helps me a lot, which is that there are times when you have someone who's asking you to do something that you're not comfortable with, and they're very aggressive about it, bless their souls. And so you may have to do the broken record, which is thank you, but no. Thank you, but no. Until they realize you mean business. Because a lot of times we can say the first no, but then we're pushed, and right away sometimes we fold. And that is not a good thing for us. So learning to say no tactfully, and I also do this if people ask me even to do fun things. I always schedule in my time, me time, and so even if a friend asks me to go to a movie or something, I will look at my appointment book and I'll say, if I really feel like I need that alone time, I will say I have an appointment. And that's because I have an appointment with myself, which is really the most important thing that I need to do during that time. So, there are different ways of handling this, and there are times when we cannot say no tactfully. So I'm not saying any of this works for 100%. But let's go ahead and launch the poll on this topic and just see for yourself how difficult or how easy is this for you.
So the poll is open. If you would all please vote how your ability to say no affects your work-life balance. We've got about half the people have voted already. So we're asking the others to jump on in there and give us their answers. Give it just another minute or two. I've got about 75% have voted now. So we need a few more people. Make your choices. Close here. So I'm over 90%. I'm just going to give it a few seconds more for people to vote. And then I am going to go ahead and close it out. And what I'm going to do is share the results. So you should be able to see the results on your screen now. Tell me when you want me to hide them.
Okay. I'm ready to see the results.
Yes, they're up.
Okay.
So, 45% said greatly, 9% said somewhat, 9% were neutral, 36% said rarely, and nobody said not at all.
Right. So, I mean, there are different percentages, as you can see, of people who are working on kind of mastering this skill of saying no and setting healthy boundaries. I mean, really, that's what it boils down to. Let's see. I'm trying to go ahead and go to the next slide. And
yeah, we're watching your screen, so.
Okay. Well, for some reason, it's not moving. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. So we did the poll that says your level of ability. And then this leads us to the next one as well, because be aware of your thoughts is so important in self-care and self-renewal, especially for people that are like us, which is the helping profession, because quite frankly, there is always going to be such a need in the world for help, and so the need for help is really bottomless. And so if we are constantly focused on only other people's needs as you well know, this is how we get to burnout. And that will not do anybody any good, including our clients, our family, and so forth. So one of the things that I think may be the culprit in burning out is that we're not even aware of what's maybe going on in our mind. Because I'll share with you some statistics that really had a startling effect on me. And just, this is not a poll, but I'm just going to ask you to think about this. Do you control your thoughts, or do your thoughts control you? Now, what I find is that it sure seems to me, looking at what's going on in my mind, because that's really what I know for sure, that it can be a little bit of both. There are times when I can say, you know, I'm having a negative thought. I don't want to go down that road, so I'm going to select something else. And I feel much better. Or there are times when, obviously, I can't shut my mind down to sleep or to relax or whatever. And I know that's quite common. So it seems to be a little bit of both. However, I would like to think that I am going more towards being able to influence my thoughts, because that definitely feels more empowering for me. I hope it does for you. So let's just kind of look at the backdrop of what we're dealing with when we say, let's be aware of our thoughts, let's be more conscious, and so forth. They've done studies now that talk about how many thoughts a human mind processes on a daily basis. And I'm just going to go straight to the result of this study, or many studies, and say that what they have found is about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day that goes through a human mind. Can you imagine? That is a whole bunch. And so what this means, several things. Number one, we are conscious of only what I'll call the tip of the iceberg. And so if there are thoughts that we know are happening, that's the part we're conscious of. However, underneath all of that, there are things going on in our subconscious and unconscious that are having an effect on us, having an effect on our lives, but we're not aware of it. We do know that something is off. So that's kind of one way to look at it. And percentage-wise, this is another shocking revelation to me, is that in terms of negative and positive, again, they've done scientific studies on this, bless their hearts. I mean, I don't know how they do that, but that's not the thought process I want to have right now. So negative, positive is about 95% negative, the remaining positive or neutral. So out of the 60,000 thoughts a day, let's say the average, 95% of that tend to be negative. And it's really not a shock when I think about it, because human beings have lived in a fear-based society for thousands of years. And so, of course, our mind would tend to go there. And so that's something to be really aware of. Now, I do have people saying, oh, that can't be me because I am a very positive person. And so I will say, great, I'm glad you're positive. And let me just ask you a question. I'll say, in the morning, when you look in the mirror and you see your body naked, let's say, are your thoughts, are they going toward the positive and saying things like, boy, I have a perfect body. Boy, I really love the weight that I'm carrying right now. Or does it go more towards the negative? Like, I got to get rid of that tummy. I don't like the way that looks. So you can kind of tell that because there's such a high percentage of people who have body image issues, especially women, our thoughts are usually very negative about that. And so this is just an example of how there are just automatic thoughts happening, and they affect us. But there's good news. There are things that we can do about it, and that's why we're here this morning. So that just kind of gives you the challenging aspect of doing some of these things that we're talking about. It's not easy to become more aware of your thoughts and maybe change them to the positive, but it is very, very important. So sometimes these thoughts are called automatic negative thoughts, ants, because they just happen. And so becoming aware of them is really the first step, because then we may have some solutions to it. And so the best way I have found to work with these stressful or painful thoughts or beliefs, that's what I call them, is based on the work that a woman, Byron Katie, has developed. Some of you may be very familiar with this, and it's called The Work, and there are 4 questions that are asked of our questions. I know in some of the self-help communities, there has been kind of a movement, or maybe still is, about letting go of certain thoughts and beliefs. Well, it sounds good, and maybe it is possible for certain people, but I have found that with myself and with my friends, with my clients, that those thoughts are not gone. They will come back given the right circumstances. And so instead of trying to let them go, the best way for me to work with those thoughts is to question them. You know, one of the most popular beliefs that I deal with everyone in my life, including clients, is I am not good enough. Doesn't matter if someone is a CEO or if someone's a factory worker or whatever. It seems like there's some level of that in everyone's consciousness. And when I ask myself, is it absolutely 100% true that I am not good enough? Well, I really can't say that I know anything for 100% absolutely true. And really, the proof is that I must be good enough to be alive on this webinar. And so I think, well, there's actually more proof that I am good enough to have survived. Probably a lot of challenging things that you have survived as well. And so then the next question, how do you react? It's not pretty. I mean, when I believe I'm not good enough, I feel a lot of fear, some sadness, all kinds of other things. And so I am then stressing out my body, stressing my, my mind. And so you can see that doing this to ourselves can be not so good. And there are ways to change that. And then the last question on is, what would you be without this thought? Or who would you be without this thought? And right now, in this moment, with all of you on this call, if I don't have that thought, I'm not good enough, I am perfectly fine. I don't have a problem. You know, it's very peaceful feeling right now. It's very clear. There's joy in me about doing this task. And so you can see that in the present moment, when we question our stressful thoughts, the series of questions actually bring us back to the present moment. That is the place where we want to try to live more and more. So some of the other popular thoughts that I've run into in myself and others is, I don't have enough time and I don't know what I'm doing. So I would say I don't have enough time is just like off the charts in terms of popularity and what's going on in our mind. And it just seems to be consequences of modern life in some ways. But what I have found about this is very interesting, is that, well, first of all, I must have had enough time so far in my life because, again, I'm still alive, I'm breathing, I'm in one piece. So obviously, I've had enough time to survive. And I certainly seem to get the really, really important priority things done. And some of those priority things could be watching one of my favorite shows on TV or something like that. So is that absolutely true that I don't have enough time? Well, sometimes it feels like it. But even if my answer to that question is that yes, it's absolutely true that I don't have enough time, even if I could answer that way, having that thought repeated in my mind over and over again as I'm trying to do things actually stresses me out more, and it actually lessens my effectiveness. So then I have less time to do other things. So as you can see, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in some ways. I can do all of those same tasks without this thought, and it'll go much faster and much more peaceful. That's what I find. So it's really good to kind of tease out, are these thoughts benefiting me in some ways, or is it something that I really don't have to go down this road? Because I know some people, I used to think this way, that some of these negative thoughts cause stress, and we need the stress to motivate us. And so that's something that we've been taught. But again, speaking just for myself in my own life, stress does not make me a better worker or better coach or better human being. I am much better at all of those things when I am not as stressed and I'm at peace. I'm much more effective. So the negative beliefs and thoughts are really not motivators, as some of us may think. So I have a t-shirt that says, don't believe everything you think. In fact, for me, I don't believe most of what I think, because the thoughts, the number of thoughts, the negative percentage, none of that has to be a problem at all, because it's not so much those two things that cause problem. It's when we believe some of these thoughts that are stressing us out that causes the problem, if that makes sense. So if someone tells me I'm 4'11", and someone tells me you're just too tall for this world, Helene, you're gangly, you don't fit in furniture, I just could not believe in my wildest dreams being 4'11", and it wouldn't stress me out because I don't believe it. But if someone said to me, oh, Helene, you're so emotional and sensitive, now that used to really push my button, because I believed that about myself, and maybe I didn't feel comfortable with that myself. So it's really a question of not so much thinking less or thinking more positive thought. It's really kind of being more discerning about which thoughts we're going to believe in, which thoughts are really the most empowering for us. So the fourth one, as I mentioned before in my previous slide, about staying present. Now, because we've talked about what might be going on in the human mind, this kind of gives us a revelation of how difficult it is sometimes to stay present in this moment, because the mind that is that fast will be either in the past or the future. And if anyone meditates here, you can definitely see that right away. So let's say the past thoughts may be, things we liked about something that happened in the past, but more often than not, it could be second guessing ourselves. Should I have done that? Shouldn't I have done that? Or just maybe stories of what people have done to us to cause us to be who we are, what we are, and so forth. So thoughts about the past or the future, which there's a lot of worrying in that human mind at times. And I read a statistic once that said that 95% of what we worry about never happens. And it's funny because as soon as I shared that with someone, they said, well, but I'm worried about the 5%. Well, yeah, okay, well, that may be a very valid point, and if someone chooses to worry about that 5%, then it is their choice. For me, that doesn't make sense, because that's not how I want to spend my life energy. And when I'm on my deathbed, I do not want to think, oh boy, I really focused on that 5% and worried a lot, and my life is now all gone. No, I really want to live a full, vibrant life. And so staying present with all of those things going on in our mind can be a very challenging thing, but the good news is we can cultivate it more and more. And I know that this is possible because I have done it myself, and I'm very much a person that is really in my head a lot. And so I ask my clients, coaching clients and otherwise, to start with a 3-minute meditation every day, because 3 minutes seems so doable. I am not asking for 20 minutes. I'm not asking for an hour. 3 minutes. And during those 3 minutes, there's no right way to do meditations, of course. It's really all about being as present as possible. And a great way to focus on that is focusing on our breath, because it's very constant and it's very life-affirming. I'm very grateful for my breath. And then the next one is just observe your thoughts, not judge them, not follow them, but just observing your thoughts as if you're sitting by the bank of a river and you are just watching these thoughts go by. So very neutral. We have to cultivate kind of that observer or the witness more and more, and it does happen more and more that we're aware of that. And then checking in with our body. So even if there are areas of pain or discomfort or tension or whatever, just checking in with our body, just kind of seeing what that energy feels like in that part of the body, and just allowing it to be as is. Because resisting it, as you well know, really causes a lot of stress, and it really doesn't do any good for that area that's in pain or for you that's in pain. The best way to move something is to just allow it as is. But that's not what our mind likes to do. The mind likes to resist. So that's where the rub comes in. And then I know for some people, a mantra is very important. Some of you may have may do this already or may have experienced TM, Transcendental Meditation. And I don't know very much about that, but what people have told me is that you get a mantra and you just recite that the whole time you're meditating. And I believe that you are given a mantra by a teacher. That's what I was told. So what I decided is I'm just going to go ahead and give myself a mantra that really works best for me, and that mantra is peace. So if my mind is really, really thinking so much, and I really need to slow it down and relax it, just even to get to the 3-minute meditation, I just repeat the word peace. And it really does kind of slow things down for me. So if you're not doing it already, I suggest that you give it a try. And so the number 5 step is renew. And this is also called self-care, because every day we really need to renew our energy. It's like we're downloaded every morning with, let's just say 100 units of energy. And right off the bat, a lot of that can go towards the past or the future. So really, and then all throughout the day, of course, sometimes withdrawals are taken from that 100 units of energy, so that by the end of the day or at night, we may be completely drained. And so some of these things that we're talking about are things that can really keep us more energized and maintain and maybe even add to that life energy throughout the day. And that's why it's important to do something to renew ourselves on a daily basis, even if it takes 2 minutes. So there are 4 dimensions, and I'm sure you all being coaches and everything already know very much about all of these principles and all the 4 dimensions of renewal. It's just that what I find is not so much that we need new information in this whole area of cultivating life-work balance, but we need reminders. I don't know about you, but I listen to motivational tapes and so forth all the time in my car, and it's not because I don't know that intellectually. Oh, I could probably do a lecture on it. No, it's more about reminding ourselves how important this is. So physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And it just depends on each person what that would look like, because you know, I am a big proponent now of some type of aerobic exercise, but I really didn't, I was really kind of against any type of aerobics for the first 40 years of my life. And then I found this great sport that is a perfect fit for me, and who would have ever thought? But I now play racquetball several times a week. And boy, you know, I am not the same person at the end of that game, at the end of the shower that I take afterwards. I am a completely different person. It's like my own energy has completely shifted. Could I get that by walking, which I do a lot with my dogs? In addition, however, I find that, yes, that is a good way to move energy. And some people have said that it's the healthiest form of exercise. But for me, I find that some type of aerobic exercise to move some of that stress every day is very important. Mental, emotional, as coaches, you well know the mental aspect of it, renewing, could be the 3-minute meditation or maybe reading an inspirational book. Anything that renews our mental, not necessarily adding to information, because that's not necessarily renewal for the mind, just adding and adding more info. It's just more of what feels nurturing to your mind. And then emotional, well, I am sure that you deal with this a lot in your coaching practices, I would imagine. I know I do. And so it's a matter of, again, allowing what is, our own emotions and others, and being comfortable with all emotions. I used to really not be very comfortable with anger in other people and in myself. And so this really affected the way I manage people. This really affected the way I coached people. And so it really was something that I needed to work through. And I would say, you know, now I feel much more comfortable than I used to, because I've confronted clients on being having issues with alcoholism, or maybe playing the victim role and so forth. And yes, there are times when there is a lot of anger. And so times like that, I don't think I would have even gone there if I wasn't more comfortable with all different emotions. And so that's very important as a coach and as a human being. And then spiritual renewal could mean a lot of different things, of course. It's very individual, as all these things are. But I would say, you know, for some examples of what people have shared with me, for some people, going out in nature is a very, very spiritual experience. For some people, it's praying or meditating, going to church, not going to church. I found this great picture of two people dancing who are not, you know, in their teens, and they just look so happy and vibrant. And so to me, something like this could cover all these dimensions: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. So it's really nice to find something or things in our life, activities that kind of are multitaskers, if you will, and renew all kinds of different dimensions of ourselves. And so this is a reminder. Like I said, I know this is not really new information, probably to most, if not all of you. But giving to yourself first without feeling selfish seems quite a challenge for some of us. And giving to yourself first is really the only way I find to stay juicy, what I call juicy in life, versus drying out, burning out, and so forth. And so self-care is not selfish. In fact, it's probably the most selfless thing that we can do, because when we take good care of ourselves, we are giving to our clients, we're giving to other people in our lives from a very positive place. And that is different than giving from a place of really kind of red ink, if you will. And so by making sure that we are in a good place and we are contributing and helping from that place, we are actually doing something good for the whole world. I really, truly believe that's one of the most important things that a human being can do. And then learning to receive is the sixth step. For some of you, this may be very easy to do. For a lot of people, including myself, this was an extremely difficult thing for many different reasons. And so asking for help, I used to be a rugged individualist. I used to be the helper, but I really was very uncomfortable asking for help. So this has been a whole new shift for me the past few years. to just realize asking for help is actually very human, and it connects me with other people, and it's okay if they say no. So, asking for help is learning to receive. And as I mentioned, giving to others from overflow and not necessarily from a withdrawn energy bank account. We're giving them, we're giving to them from a place of like a big savings account, because we have taken really good care of ourselves. And so our checks won't bounce. I'll just use that metaphor because I used to be in the banking industry. So that's very important. And then shifting out of rescuer or helper mode. And I mean, there is a positive side to all of that, of course. However, some of us learn to be rescuers from very, very early on in our family. And so, of course, we would continue that pattern as coaches or as workers or in relationships. And ultimately, as you probably well know, the rescuer role, it really turns out to be a victim role. And so really, if we are prone to getting into that habit of unhealthy rescuing, then we really have to do things to try to shift out of it. And for me, therapy was very instrumental with that, as well as all of these other steps that I've shared with you. And then learning to receive, and that's a lifelong process for me. And so some people like us in the coaching or in the helping fields or professions are drawn to it because we are so used to rescuing or helping other people. And that can be a really positive thing, like I said, but we can certainly look at the maybe unhealthy aspects for some of us. So that's a very important thing. And then, of course, the next one is very simple but not easy to do. Because, again, we are thinking so much, usually on a daily basis, that breathing kind of becomes something that's automatically done for us. However, when we are stressed, it's scientifically known that we tend to breathe very shallow. And so for some of us, this can be like just starting off the morning by an alarm, getting the kids to school on time, dealing with rush hour traffic. And that was all before we even got to work. And so then during the whole day, we may be under stress. And so by the end of the day, it's very possible that we might not have had one deep breath during this whole time. And so I just find it very important, like I'm doing right now in this moment, to make sure that I am taking some really good deep breath. And I also have a little buzz or alarm on my smartphone to remind me every 60 minutes to take a couple of minutes and stretch, get out of my computer desk mode and maybe do a little yoga or something like that. So it reminds me every 60 minutes to really breathe and stretch, move my body and so forth if I am doing more sedentary work. So breathing, very important, and every spiritual tradition that I know has always focused on breath as a spiritual practice. So let's review the 7 steps to life-work balance that we've looked at. Learning to say no tactfully. And this takes practice, I find, if we haven't been doing it very well. And becoming more aware of our thoughts. Again, through meditation, we can become aware more and more. And then we don't have to get rid of those thoughts, thank goodness, because that feels very overwhelming that I may have to get rid of, oh, I don't know, 55% of my thoughts every day. So instead, just question the stressful beliefs, the painful thoughts or beliefs that come up in my consciousness. And I just question those just like I would question something that a very innocent child says to me. Because those thoughts are actually quite innocent. You know, they come from a place of very early on in our past. And so it's really important to be gentle with ourselves through this whole thing, but especially questioning the stressful beliefs. And then we talked about staying present. Oh, life is good when we are in the present. That's what I find. I find that my mind has actually a difficult time with the present because there are no problems for it to solve. And so staying present, being in the present moment, that really feels good. And then renewing every day, doing something, making sure we carve out time, even if it's 3 minutes, and learning to receive, as we discussed. And it can be as simple as learning to receive compliments, because I wasn't very good at that. And I would say things like, oh, this old dress, oh, I've had it forever, or really, you really like this scarf? That type of thing. And not only is it kind of insulting to the giver of the compliment, but I realized that I just could not accept these compliments and enjoy them. And I remember being at a concert, and this young woman in front of me got a compliment, and she turned around, and I just loved the expression on her face when she just simply said, "Thank you." And I thought, I want to be like that. I want to be able to receive and accept in a gracious way. So, you know, this is something, again, lifelong journey for me, but very well worth it. And then the most important and the most simple, but not necessarily the easy thing, is just focusing more on our breath, making sure that we are reminded of that. And I am very thankful for my breath, because I know the times when I can't breathe very well, like if I have a cold, that's when I realize how important it is. And, you know, while I'm on that, let me just say that in terms of spiritual practice or daily practice, I find that practicing gratitude is just one of those things that make me feel so good. And some days it's, I write them down, some days I don't, but some days it's more like I'm grateful for electricity, I'm grateful for running water, because I've lived in places where that is not taken for granted. There are probably more people in the world who can't take for granted than there are people like us. And so there are days when I just think the basics, but then there's so many days when I can be grateful for so many different things. Like today, I was telling Kathy that there's a miracle happening in Seattle, where I live. The sun actually came out. So I am very grateful for the sunshine today. And it just makes me feel great. I think it makes me more receptive to more good in my life. And I just think that it's a good practice to make sure that our mind stays on the positive, because it's very easy for the mind to go towards the negative, as we discussed. So those are the 7 steps, and I hope that there was something in this webinar that you could say, I would like to do that. Maybe you're already doing it, but you want to do it more often. Or maybe something that you heard this morning and you say, I want to try that. And so I fully encourage you to do this, not for anyone else, but for yourself. It's like becoming your own best coach, you know. And so what you would recommend to yourself, maybe an action step, and trying it for at least 40 days. That seems to be kind of the length of time it takes to start changing a habit. So I really encourage you to take great care of yourself, cultivate work-life balance, because it really is important, as you well know, not just for ourselves, for people around us. And so I am just really happy that I got to share this with you. As I said, probably just reminders for all of us, myself especially included. And the book that I wrote, Hamster on the Wheel, Cultivating Life-Work Balance, goes over all of these steps in more detail. It's really a parable, kind of like Who Moved My Cheese. It's about a little hamster called Sally. So it's a very easy read. People have told me that they've read it in 2 hours. And so if you're interested in that, you can get that through Amazon. And I am listing my website as well as my email address if you have any further questions or anything that you want to talk with me about. But I did want to open it up for questions now if anyone has them. So do we have any questions?
One question that is here for you, Helene, you listed 7 different steps. Is there an order of priority to those steps that you listed?
Great question. I think that's very individual because for some of us it may be learning to say no and learning to receive as our top 2. And for some others it may be more about learning how to breathe and self-renew. And so, you know, all those 7 steps are very interdependent, as you know, but the reality of it is every single person, we have a different journey that we're going on. And so it's, you know, bottom line is I would say it's very individualized. So I would encourage people to look at the 7 steps and say, what are my top 2? And start with that.
Okay. Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then another question that came in is you talked about saying no, and you gave one example of, can I have 48 hours to think about it? What is another way of saying no?
Mm-hmm. Right. The other way that I briefly mentioned is making sure that you schedule in time for yourself. It could be free time, or it could be, you know, doing something that you just really brings you joy. You schedule time in, and when people ask you to do things during those times, those scheduled times, it's just, for me, easy to say, oh gosh, I have an appointment during that time, because I have an appointment with myself. Now, that may be a form of lying, I'm not sure, but I just, you know, it's something that works for me. Because I guess for me, I'm kind of chickening out. So instead of saying, gosh, you know, I really have scheduled some me time during that, I really need to be alone. Some people might take offense to that, so I guess I'm protecting myself by telling a white little lie. But it is true. It is true for me that I do have an appointment, and that appointment is with me. So that's another one. Let's see if I can think of anything else. You know, I think the basic thing is not a lot need to be said necessarily for this. In fact, the shorter or the less number of words, the better. You know, I think really what I say a lot anymore is something like, thank you for asking, but no. Thank you for asking, but no. Or thank you for asking and no. That might be even better. So,
I like that one.
yeah, right. So let's take the word but out of there and just add and, you know. And again, like I said, some people are really going to push, and it may be for a great cause, but your greatest cause is yourself, and you're doing this for not just yourself, but for the world. So that, in my mind, always takes priority. And from that place, when I give to others, it feels very, very positive, not just for me, but for them as well. I truly believe in that kind of positive energy and giving from that. Excellent. So, so I hope that's another example.
Yeah, and another question, you talked about percentage of thoughts that are negative and positive.
Right.
What is the number for that? How many of our thoughts are negative and how many are positive?
Oh, well, they've determined that about 95% of our thoughts tend to run toward the negative. And I gave the example of what most of us think, what thoughts we think when we look at our bodies on the bathroom mirrors. I would say mine really do tend to run towards a 95% negative and 5% positive, And I am in the process of shifting that and also not believing those negative thoughts. But that is a prime example of something that we live in, our body, that it can generate that many negative thoughts. So 95% negative.
Wow, wow. And Helene, there's a request here for your definition of work-life balance. To have you say that?
Mm-hmm. So my definition is, first of all, life-work balance is an everyday thing. I mean, I can have life-work balance yesterday, but something happens, and today could be totally different. And so my definition of life-work balance is, some of those things that I asked in the poll, making sure I have enough time for my loved ones, making sure that I have enough time to take care of myself. And I've gotten really good at that. And, true confession time, I used to be a major workaholic, and working 60 to 70 hours was really the norm. And so this is a huge, huge shift for me. And so some of those things, I really also think it's important to have like creative outlets. And so I do that. And having time for spiritual practice. So really, this can take some time, but it doesn't always have to take a lot of time, I find. But that's my definition of life-work balance, and living in joy. That's what I would say. When I work from that place of joy, boy, things seem to go so much better in coaching or in training.
Yeah, excellent. And a question here, what is a tip for being okay to ask for help?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, first of all, when we ask for help, I think sometimes there's the fear of rejection. So for me, I ask myself before I ask for help, is it okay? I say this to myself, is it okay if the person says no? And so I kind of prepare myself for that situation. But, I expect that, yes, but I can be prepared. I have a backup system, let's say. So I think that's important, and not to be attached to a yes outcome. So that's one tip. And I think, making the request in a doable way, like instead of asking, I really want you to care more for me, that's really general and wide. So maybe something like, it would be really helpful if every morning you could bring me a cup of coffee in bed. Is that something that you're willing to do? So, I'm always asking, would you be willing to do this? And if they say no, I really need to be okay with that, because if I'm making a request and I get mad if they say no, that is not a request or asking for help. That is a demand. And I do those sometimes, but this is a different thing. At least I know when I'm demanding something.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And Helene, thank you again for your time today. I think you did a great job of covering everyone's questions. If anyone had another last-minute question, do let us know. As you can all see, her website and email address are up on your screen. So if you want to reach out and connect with Helene or check out her book on Amazon, you have that opportunity. Do want to, of course, let you know, all of you ideally have my address as well, so anything I can do to be helpful, please do let me know. So thank you, everyone. And Helene, people are typing in thank you and that they appreciated your time today, and I think some of them are just getting back into their workday and into their schedule. So thank you, everyone, for your time, for your participation. We appreciate having you join us and look forward to the next webinar that we will have. So thank you.
Thank you all. I'm very, very grateful, and have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.